Imagine a predator longer than a T-Rex, heavier than a Giganotosaurus, and carrying a massive sail on its back that towers over a grown man. For over a century, we thought we knew exactly what this creature was. We gave it a name, we turned it into a cinematic legend, and we cemented its image in the public consciousness as the unmatched king of the land, a specialized, long-snouted version of the classic theropod killer. But there is one major problem. It turns out, almost everything we thought we knew about this animal was dead wrong. In the world of paleontology, most species follow a predictable path of discovery. We find the bones, we study the anatomy, and we fill in the gaps. But this creature is different. It is the only dinosaur that seems to actively fight back against our understanding of biology. Every time scientists feel they have finally solved the riddle, a new discovery emerges from the sands of the Sahara that shatters every previous theory and forces us to scrap years of research. This is the dinosaur that forced us to rewrite the history books not once, but 4 times in the last decade alone. A creature with the tail of a giant tadpole, legs that appear far too short for its massive body, and a nervous system that looks more like that of a modern crocodile than a prehistoric bird. It is a predator that shouldn't exist according to the laws of evolution we thought we understood. We are looking at a creature that bridges the gap between land and sea, the titan whose true identity remains the center of the most heated, aggressive debate in modern science. Was it the apex killer of the riverbeds, a deep water swimmer, or something else entirely that we haven't even named yet? This is the truth, the lies, and the absolute madness of Spinosaurus. The tragedy of Spinosaurus began not millions of years ago, but in the heart of a war-torn Europe in 1944. To figure out why this dinosaur is such a mystery today, we first have to understand how we lost it. In 1912, a German aristocrat and paleontologist named Ernst Stromer traveled deep into the Bahariya oasis of Egypt. What he found there was a scientific gold mine, the partial remains of a predator unlike anything ever recorded. It had massive conical teeth and neural spines that reached over 5 feet in height. Stromer named it Spinosaurus Aegyptiacus, the Egyptian spine lizard. For the first time, the world caught a glimpse of a giant that seemed to rival the Tyrannosaurus rex in scale. Stromer brought these precious bones back to the Bavarian State Collection in Munich, where they became the centerpiece of the museum. But Stromer's discovery coincided with the rise of the Nazi regime. As a vocal critic of the Nazi Party, Stromer found himself sidelined, and his requests to move his fossils to a safer location during the height of World War II were repeatedly denied by the museum's pro-Nazi director. On the night of April 24, 1944, the inevitable happened. Allied bombers targeted Munich, and the museum was caught in the firestorm. By morning, the only physical evidence of Spinosaurus in existence was reduced to ash and rubble. The world's first and only specimen was gone. For the next 70 years, Spinosaurus became a ghost dinosaur. All that remained were Stromer's meticulous notes and a few black and white photographs. In the decades following the war, research into Spinosaurus entered a long period of stagnation and confusion. Without the original bones to re-examine with modern technology, paleontologists were forced to rely on sketches and guesswork. Occasional discoveries of isolated teeth and jaw fragments across North Africa suggested that Stromer's giant was part of a larger family, but they offered no clues about its body proportions. During this era, Spinosaurus was almost always depicted as a generic, classic theropod, essentially a T-Rex with a sail and a crocodile's head. Scientists simply assumed it walked on 2 powerful legs and hunted like any other large predator. This lack of physical evidence created a vacuum, allowing us to fill the gaps with our own imagination. We began to reconstruct a monster based on what we thought a giant theropod should look like, rather than what it actually was. We were building a legend on a foundation of ash, completely unaware that the real animal was far more bizarre than anything we could have ever dreamed. By the turn of the millennium, the ghost of Spinosaurus had finally found its way into the spotlight of global pop culture, but it came with a heavy price. In 2001, Jurassic Park III introduced the world to its new antagonist. It wasn't the T-Rex that held the throne anymore. It was a long-snouted, sail-backed nightmare that could snap the neck of a tyrannosaur like a twig. This was the birth of the Hollywood Spinosaurus, a hyper-aggressive terrestrial superpredator. It was depicted as a faster, stronger, and more agile version of the T-Rex, capable of sprinting through dense jungles and engaging in heavy physical combat on land. For millions of people, this became the definitive version of the animal. It was a terrifying bipedal killer that dominated the land, the water, and the box office. But there was a massive disconnect. At the time of the film's release, the scientific community had almost no new post-war data to justify this depiction. The filmmakers essentially took the small fragmented jaw pieces found in the 90s and stretched them onto a standard theropod frame. They created a Frankenstein's monster, an animal that looked scientifically plausible on screen, but was biologically impossible in reality. This cinematic version did more than just entertain. It created a deep-seated scientific myth. It convinced a generation that Spinosaurus was a land-based gladiator, a rival that fought for the same crown as the T-Rex. We were so captivated by this image of the ultimate land predator that we ignored the glaring anatomical clues hidden in the few fragments we actually had. We were looking at a Hollywood fabrication, completely unaware that the real Spinosaurus wouldn't have been fighting T-Rexes in the forest. It would have been ruling a world the filmmakers hadn't even considered. The lie was so convincing that it took a decade of groundbreaking controversial research to finally tear it down. And as it turned out, the truth was far more bizarre than anything Hollywood could have ever imagined. For over a decade, the Hollywood image of the Spinosaurus stood unchallenged. But in 2014, the ghost finally returned to haunt the scientific world. A young, determined paleontologist named Nizar Ibrahim managed to track down a partial skeleton that had been excavated by a local fossil hunter in Morocco. This was the moment the world had been waiting for since 1944, a new substantial look at the bones of the River King. But as Ibrahim and his team began to reconstruct the skeleton, the excitement turned into utter confusion. The data didn't make sense. According to the measurements, this massive predator, an animal that reached 50 feet in length, had hind legs that were shockingly short. They were stumpy, disproportionate, and looked almost comical compared to the long, powerful legs of a T-Rex or an Allosaurus. This was the 2014 plot twist that sent shockwaves through the global scientific community. The discovery suggested that Spinosaurus wasn't the agile, bipedal runner we saw on the big screen. Even its center of gravity was so far forward that many scientists argued it would have been physically impossible for the animal to walk on two legs at all. Ibrahim's team proposed a radical, controversial theory. Spinosaurus might have been a quadruped, a dinosaur that walked on four legs when it was on land. This was unheard of for a large theropod. To see the T-Rex killer reduced to a low-slung, awkward crawler was a massive blow to the public's perception of the animal. But the legs were only the beginning. The bones were dense, lacking the hollow cavities seen in other predatory dinosaurs. They were heavy, acting like ballast in a ship. This wasn't the anatomy of a land-based gladiator, it was the anatomy of a diver. The 2014 discovery didn't just change the way we looked at Spinosaurus, it destroyed the Hollywood myth entirely. It revealed a creature that was slowly transitioning away from the Earth and into the water, a glitch in the evolutionary line that left scientists arguing over whether it was a dinosaur or a prehistoric dragon of the deep. If the 2014 discovery of short legs was a shock, so the discovery in 2020 was a total revolution. For years, the debate over how Spinosaurus moved was missing one crucial piece of the puzzle: the tail. Most reconstructions simply gave it a standard tapering theropod tail, stiff and used primarily for balance on land. But when Nizar Ibrahim and his team returned to the Kem beds of Morocco, they unearthed a nearly complete tail that changed everything. It wasn't a thin, whip-like appendage. Instead, it was a massive vertical paddle. High neural spines and long chevrons created a broad, flexible fin that stretched the entire length of the tail. This wasn't just a dinosaur tail. It was a propulsion system. The 2020 discovery proved that Spinosaurus possessed a biological motor capable of massive lateral thrust. Biomechanical thrust tests showed that this paddle-like tail could produce 8 times more thrust in the water than the tails of other predatory dinosaurs. It was the smoking gun that confirmed Spinosaurus was the first truly semi-aquatic dinosaur known to science. This discovery turned the Spinosaurus into a combined life form. It had the head of a crocodile, the sail of a prehistoric reptile, the stumpy legs of a land dweller, and now the powerful fin of a sea monster. We finally had proof that this animal wasn't just visiting the water, it was reclaiming it. The image of the bipedal landkiller was officially dead, replaced by a specialized river-dwelling titan that moved through the Cretaceous waterways like a giant, scaly nightmare. Just when we thought the mystery was solved with the discovery of the paddle-like tail, the scientific community split into 2 warring camps. On one side, you have the pursuit predators, those who believe Spinosaurus was an active underwater hunter chasing down large fish in the depths like a crocodile. But on the other side, a new controversial idea emerged: the Heron theory. Despite having a powerful tail, some researchers argue that Spinosaurus was actually a terrible swimmer. They point to its massive sail, which would have created immense drag underwater, and its buoyant lungs, which might have made it tip over like a top-heavy boat. Instead of a deep-sea diver, they propose that Spinosaurus was a giant wader, a prehistoric version of a heron or a grizzly bear. In this scenario, Spinosaurus didn't swim after its prey. Instead, it stood in the shallows on its stumpy legs, perfectly still, using its sensitive snout to detect vibrations in the water. When a fish swam by, it would strike with lightning speed, using its long neck and hook-like claws to snatch its meal without ever fully submerging. This debate reached a boiling point in the mid-2020s. Complex digital simulations were built to test the animal's center of gravity and hydrostability. Some models showed that if Spinosaurus tried to swim in deep water, it would have struggled to stay upright, spinning out of control because of that iconic sail. So, was it a specialized aquatic pursuit hunter, or just a massive bird-like wader stuck in the mud? The scientific world is currently locked in a stalemate. We have a creature with the engine of a boat, but the stability of a raft, forcing us to ask if Spinosaurus was an evolutionary masterpiece or a biological contradiction that was never quite finished. To understand why the debate over Spinosaurus is so fierce, we have to look past the silhouette and dissect the sheer biological chaos of its anatomy. This is an animal that shouldn't make sense. It is a collection of features borrowed from completely different corners of the animal kingdom, fused into one massive 15-ton frame. Let's start with the most iconic feature, the sail. For decades, we thought it was a heat regulator, or a hump for fat storage. But modern analysis suggests something different. The spines are thin, draped in skin, and highly vascularized. In the murky rivers of the Cretaceous, this sail would have cut through the water's surface like a giant warning sign, a tool for display to intimidate rivals or attract mates. But as we discussed, this same sail is a hydrodynamic nightmare, creating massive drag that challenges the idea of it being a sleek underwater hunter. Then there is the skull. It is long, narrow, and filled with straight conical teeth, perfect for gripping slippery fish, but terrible at crushing bone. If you look closely at the tip of the snout, you'll find a series of small pits. These aren't just holes, they are neurovascular foramina. In modern crocodiles, these house pressure sensors that can detect the movement of prey in pitch-black water. Spinosaurus was effectively feeling the river with its face. And finally, we have to talk about the mismatch of the limbs. It possessed massive muscular arms tipped with scythe-like claws, tools designed for heavy lifting or visceral slashing. But these were paired with those infamously short hind legs. This anatomical imbalance is what makes the animal so hard to categorize. It has the engine of a swimmer in its tail, the sensors of a crocodile in its nose, the weapons of a land predator in its arms, and the stability issues of a specialized wader. Every inch of Spinosaurus is a contradiction. It represents a biological glitch, where evolution tried to turn a terrestrial giant into a marine master, but stopped somewhere in the middle. It is a creature caught between two worlds, proving that nature doesn't always favor a clean design. Sometimes it creates a monster that defies every rule we try to write. After a century of discovery, destruction, and radical reinvention, we are left with a startling realization. The more we find of Spinosaurus, the less we seem to truly understand it. We've moved past the ghost sketches of the 1940s and the Hollywood myths of the 2000s, only to find ourselves standing before a creature that defies the very laws of paleontology. Spinosaurus remains the ultimate unsolvable riddle. It is an animal that lived in the in-between. It wasn't quite a fish, not quite a crocodile, and certainly not a typical dinosaur. It was a pioneer of an ecosystem that no longer exists, a world where the rivers were filled with monsters the size of cars, and the king of those rivers was a 15-ton anomaly with a sail on its back. The mystery that remains isn't just about whether it swam or waded, or whether it walked on two legs or four. The real mystery is what else we are missing. If a creature this massive and this bizarre could remain hidden in the shadows of science for over 100 years, what other glitches in evolution are still buried beneath the sands of the Sahara, waiting to shatter everything we think we know about life on Earth? Perhaps we will never have a final perfect image of this animal, and maybe that is exactly how it should be. Spinosaurus serves as a humbling reminder that nature is far more creative, chaotic, and unpredictable than our scientific models can often handle. It was a king of the Cretaceous rivers that hasn't finished telling its story yet. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the life of Spinosaurus, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. Don't forget to share the video too. We've got more prehistoric creatures coming your way soon. Until next time, stay curious.